multiplication using dynamic memory allocation. We are going to use malloc function. So we need to include one more header file, hash include sddlib.h. Next, since we are going to perform matrix multiplication for two-dimensional matrix, let me declare double pointers to get or allocate space for A matrix and for second matrix B, and resultant matrix, the product of A and B is going to be stored in C matrix. And I need index variable I, j, c, not only k, not only that, rows for first matrix, columns for first matrix, rows for second matrix, and columns for second matrix. Now I have declared all necessary variables that we are going to use inside the program. And the first step is we need to get the values for rows and columns of both the matrix. Enter rows and columns for matrix 1. Now we can use a scanf statement to get the values %d, comma, ampersand r1, c1. Now we need to get the rows and columns for the second matrix. With little modifications, let it be matrix 2, and matrix 2 row and column we'll get using variables c1 and c2. I have missed an ampersand here, so let me correct it, ampersand. Now after getting rows and columns, we can perform the necessary condition that we can go with the matrix multiplication is the number of columns in first matrix should be equal to the number of rows in the second matrix. So if the number of columns in first matrix is not equal to the rows in the second matrix, we cannot perform matrix multiplication. So just throw an error and then exit. Now once the first column and second matrix row is equal, we can perform matrix multiplication. For that we need to get the values before getting the values for A matrix, we need to allocate space using malloc function. So I'm going to use A and then it has to be typecasted to a double pointer value. The syntax for this one is malloc of a row star size of int star. So this will create or allocate R1 number of rows of type integer pointer and assign it to A. Now the space for rows is created. Now for every row, so I has to be varied from 0 to I less than R1. For every row, you have to create column space. So for doing so, you are going to use a for loop for every row. So make it A of I is equal to open bracket int star malloc open bracket column space has to be created of type integer, size of int. So this line will create for every row C1 number of columns. So we have created dynamically the space for A matrix with R1 number of rows and C1 number of columns, and we'll be having a pointer return. It's a double pointer value, one for row, another one for column, and it will be returned to A matrix. Likewise, we need to create space for B matrix with R2 number of rows. So here it should be B, you have to change accordingly, and here it should be R2, here it should be R2 for R2 number of rows, C1 number of column, C2 number of column space should be for every column, every row, column has to be allocated. So we have changed the code accordingly. So the space for B matrix is created with R2 rows and C2 columns. Now the space for C matrix will be created. What is the size of the C matrix? It will be R1 rows and C2 columns. So it will be R1 rows and C2 columns. That will be the size of the resultant matrix. Here you have to change it to C, and here also we have to change it to C. So far we have created we got the input for rows and columns for both the matrices, first matrix and second matrix, and we have created we have dynamically allocated space for A matrix, B matrix and C matrix, and there will be a pointer returned to ABC. Now we'll run and see whether the code works properly till now. I missed a D in the header file. It is stdio.h. Okay, now we'll run. Okay, we need to enter the, let it be 2 cross 2 and 2, 2 and go. The code executed successfully means we were able to allocate space dynamically for A matrix, B matrix and C matrix without any problem. The next is we need to get input for A matrix or the first matrix. So enter elements for matrix, matrix 1. Let it start from a new line. So for getting matrix using getting elements for a two-dimensional matrix, you'll be using two for loops. Index variable I will vary for R1 number of rows, I plus plus. Again, to vary for column, we are using another index variable which varies from 0 to C2, C1, J plus plus. So first row, first column, first row, second column, first row, third column. Likewise, it will be getting. After getting for every column, second row, first column. Likewise. So percentage %d, comma, ampersand E of I comma j. So these are the statements that will be used to get the values for A matrix. Then we can get the elements for B matrix with little change. We have to make this to second matrix and second matrix row, second matrix column, and name of the second matrix is B. Now this will get the input for ABC. We'll print and see whether this works properly. Matrix. We have to change it to printf %d. So I'm including a slash tab to create space between elements in every row. After printing for one row all the column, I can give a new line. I can print a new line so that the next row elements will be printed in the next column, next row. This is for matrix 1, and for matrix 2 it changes to 2 to B. We have not done any multiplication so far. We have tried to get the input for rows and columns, allocate dynamically space for A, B, C, and we have finished getting values for A matrix and B matrix, and we have printed that and we are going to check it out whether it works properly. I should give a 0. Okay. Why it's not? Oh, in line number 31 also, here also. Since I have copy pasted, the error propagates in all J index. Let me check all. Okay, right. Okay, let me use a 2 cross 2 matrix. My first matrix rows and column is 2 cross 2. Second matrix rows and columns is 2 cross 2. I'm going to have first 4 elements and then second 4 elements for second matrix, and see, it's printed. That's why I've used a slash tab. It is creating space between elements in row. /n, after printing first row, all the column elements, I'm creating a new space, new line space, so the next row elements is printed at the next line. Now, after getting input, what I have to do is I have to perform matrix multiplication. For that, I'll be using 3 for loops: less than R1, I plus plus, and then inside that for j equal to 0, j less than C2, j plus plus, and after performing intermediate sum of every row, this has to repeat the process. So let me clear it here. And then we'll start the loop for k. K is equal to 0, k less than C2, k plus plus. And then C of I, C of j is equal to C of I, C of j plus A of I, A of k into B of k, B of j. Okay. This will effectively calculate matrix multiplication. So for every row you have to multiply with every column elements, and we have to add the intermediate result to calculate the resultant matrix. So first row will be multiplied, first row element 1 into 2 plus 1 into 2 has to be computed, and the entire sum will be added and it will be stored in Cij for the first place. For the second place, again the same has to be repeated again, so it is cleared here. Before starting it, the C of ij is 0 because you will be getting another C of ij for the first row second column. So this will be repeated. I hope the code is right. Now we'll print and see what happens to the resultant matrix. So the resultant matrix value is stored in C. So we'll print that also. Resultant matrix. The size of the resultant matrix will be R1 and C2 and C. Now we'll run the code. I have changed accordingly and we'll run the code now. See, in line number 39, instead of 0 I have used O. That's the error. Now I'll be getting, so 2 cross 2 matrix, again a 2 cross 2 matrix. Let me run again. It's a 2 cross 2 matrix, first matrix. Second matrix is also 2 cross 2 matrix. I'm going to enter the elements first matrix. Let it be 1 1 1. Element for second matrix 2 2 2. The answer should be 4 4 4. We'll check the answer. Okay, this matrix multiplication works fine. The task here is not only to perform matrix multiplication, but to allocate space dynamically for the two-dimensional arrays we have used here using malloc function. We were able to successfully execute it.